Here's what's coming up on the world today. Haiti's police chief gives details on how President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated on Wednesday. Afghan forces make some gains as the Taliban continues to advance following the departure of U.S. troops from the country. Plus, South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma surrenders to serve his sentence, but the Justice Minister gives some hope. A warm welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We're learning more about what happened the night Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated, as police chief Leon Charles says a deadly gun battle ensued between the police and the gunmen who carried out the assassination at his residence in Port-au-Prince. We'll get more on that story in a little bit, but let's move to another disaster, this time in Miami, in the United States, as hope wanes even further on finding any survivors from the rubble of the collapsed 12-story building in Surfside. Families and loved ones of the nearly 100 people still unaccounted for are facing that reality right now. On Wednesday, crews recovered 18 more bodies, bringing to 54 the total number of bodies recovered from the ruins of the Champlain Towers so far. They were told by a fire official during a private briefing that the search and rescue operation was now considered a recovery mission with zero chance of finding more survivors.
I've been the incident commander here almost since day one. And I just wanted to share with you that on behalf of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue and all the rescuers here that have given all that they've had up until this point and will continue to do so, we are saddened by this tragic event. Our hearts are heavy, and as a very small symbol of that grief that we share with you, we have a sign that we would like, with your permission, to add to the wall of remembrance here that you all have started.
And as the rescue operation came to a close, workers observed a 15-minute silence. Officials say there's some possibility that some of those still missing will be found elsewhere or have been double counted. Members of the Miami-Dade rescue team hung a large banner on a makeshift memorial that read, "Miami-Dade Fire Rescue grieves with you." And then religious leaders led a group of first responders, local politicians, and mourners in prayers.
My sister and my brother-in-law are in that building right now. You'd never expect to be put in a place like this overnight. I got the news at 3 in the morning the day of, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. You can't express what emotions you feel. Angry, you're sad. You can't express what all the families in there are going through.
God bless you. May God give you strength.
Our correspondent in Washington, Maria BYRD, joins us now. Maria, this must have been a very emotional moment, as you know, we just listened to one of the relatives of the victims there, for the first responders as well as the families and loved ones. But the first responders themselves, what are you hearing about how this has impacted them?
This has impacted the whole community of Surfside, Florida, and really the whole nation. Just realizing really the frailty of our infrastructure in the U.S. I mean, we know that there has been conversations, and this just really puts forth the real need to address infrastructure across the board in the United States. And we know the president and Congress have been focused on that. And so the emotions today, I think, are one of remembering those who were lost, and obviously those first responders who have spent day in and day out, the emotional strain it's put on them, not only the physical strain with actually the work, but the emotional strain, knowing that there are hundreds of people that were lost, over 100 people that were lost, and knowing that there are so many, more than, 2/3 of the individuals are still left to be found. And at this point, as you said, it's a recovery effort. It's no longer a rescue effort. So to know that the bodies that they find will most likely not be living if they are able to even recover the bodies.
And the ceremony that took place on Wednesday, authorities are saying that there will no longer be any search for survivors, as you've mentioned as well, and will be engaged in recovery. But does this officially begin the grieving process for those who may still have loved ones stuck under the rubble?
This will begin a grieving process that, to be quite honest, I think that many started, a week ago. I think that after we got out of the 72-hour window, many families started to begin that grieving process, even though they tried to hold on to some hope. But it's going to be very difficult for those families if they are not able to actually recover the remains of their loved one for their grieving process. But I think this is really going to be a sign for, I think, the U.S. and for the Surfside, Florida area to really take these type of incidents seriously and to ensure the safety of buildings, and especially buildings, where you have individuals and loved ones there. And I think the families will probably begin to be advocates for this type of inspection moving forward.
Surfside, Miami is not the only, place impacted. Not only the residents, they are emotional, but for all Americans, this is an emotional period. Even President Joe Biden had paid a visit to the scene of the incident, spending hours with first responders and rescue workers as well. Can we get a sense of how long the recovery and maybe investigation into this incident could take, and what happens after that?
This will most likely take months to really fully get through. The investigation could take longer than that. And so what you're going to probably begin to see is you're going to begin to see certain policies put in place to be able to try to avoid something like this happening moving forward. But the actual site will likely be in a recovery mode and under investigation for several months. And so there's no end time right now that anyone is looking at to actually end the recovery.
Maria BYRD for us there in Washington. Thanks, Maria, for that update.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take you back to our top story now and learning what else has happened in Haiti on the night that the President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated. Police Chief Leon Charles says a deadly gun battle ensued between the police and the gunmen who carried out the assassination at the president's residence. Take a listen.
According to Police Chief Leon Charles, Haiti's security forces were locked in a fierce gun battle on Wednesday with the assailants who assassinated President Jovenel Moïse at his home overnight, plunging the already impoverished country into more chaos. The police, he said, killed 4 of the mercenaries and captured 2 more, saying, "We blocked them en route as they left the scene of the crime. Since then, we've been battling with them. They will be killed or apprehended," he says. The interim Prime Minister, Claude Joseph, who has assumed leadership of the country, has declared a 2-week state of emergency to help it hunt down the assassins, who are being referred to as foreign mercenaries and well-trained killers. Local media report that President Moïse was shot at close range in his bedroom, 12 bullets pumped into his body. His wife, First Lady Martine Moïse, who was also with him at the time, was shot as well, and is being treated at Miami's Jackson Memorial Hospital for injuries sustained in the attack. Residents of Miami's Little Haiti have reacted to the assassination. Florida has a large Haitian American population, and Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida has called on the Biden administration to help bring the killers to justice. U.S. President Joe Biden has condemned the assassination, saying more information would be needed of the attack. Leaders from Latin American countries have condemned the assassination as well. Even Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido adding his voice to the mix, slamming the assassination as barbaric and sending his condolences to Haitians. Neighboring Dominican Republic has closed its border following the assassination, allowing only returning nationals to be permitted into the country. The police has given no more information on the attackers, save that they were mercenaries, foreigners who spoke English and Spanish, and who announced themselves as DEA, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration on operation. Haiti's ambassador to the U.S., Bochit Edmond, says while the attackers disguised themselves as U.S. drug agents, he believed there was no way they really were U.S. agents. For now, Haitians are obeying orders to stay inside and remain calm.
Let's get more on this. Joining us now is Gerlin Joseph, the co-founder and chief executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, a coalition of non-profit organizations and community activists. She joins us from California. Gerlin, thank you for joining us. All right, certainly. President Jovenel Moise's assassination came as a rude shock to the world, but he has had an embattled presidency too, one riddled with reports of gun-running gangs, corruption and poverty on the rise, and he survived an assassination earlier this year while still facing calls to step down. What are you hearing from back home? How are people reacting to what has happened?
Honestly, people are in shock of what just happened, and understanding that this is a result of a long trail of chaos, violence, rape, kidnapping. 2 weeks ago, major assassination of young men and women, including journalists and community activists and leaders in Haiti itself. So right now, what we are hearing, what we are feeling, what we are seeing on the ground is out of shock, and people are in disbelief. And also, what I say, and people might not understand, the mourning of so many lives that have been lost throughout the years and throughout the last couple of weeks, the last month, as we all know what happened, recently. It's what we see as a result of complete non-governance and complete lack of priorities for the Haitian people, for the Haitian community, for the Haitian nation. So today, the Haitian people in Haiti and in diaspora are in pain, are screaming for justice, screaming for freedom, screaming for peace, and screaming for protection on the ground.
Right, so this assassination could very well have political undertones because President Moise had refused to step down in February. He has changed prime ministers about 6 times and had announced a new one just a day before he was killed. Do you imagine the president's assassination only plunges the country into more political uncertainty?
Absolutely, that is a possibility. That we are hoping that this impasse will be used as a way for the country to be turned away from the violence. But we have to be realistic. It is also a possibility that the country can plunder into more turbulence, as we see. And as you mentioned, right now in the middle of all the crises, we still see a push for elections. We still see both internal and external violence rampant in the country, and we must look into those things. We must make sure that all of this violence stop. And as you mentioned, what's been going on, as far as the president refusing to step down in February. But we also have to highlight that currently Haiti is without a government. None of the branches of government in Haiti is functioning right now. You mentioned that the president nominated a new vice president, a new prime minister the day before he was assassinated. Now we have two people in the country literally, debating who's supposed to be doing what. We do not have a Supreme Justice because the head of the Supreme Justice died of COVID 2 weeks ago. We do not have a parliament because both the Senate and the deputy, the lower chamber and the both chambers have been in complete shambles. So we have a country that is lacking all three branches of government. So right now, we are rallying around the people to see what's the best course of action.
Right, thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Co-founder Haitian Bridge Alliance, Gerlin Joseph, speaking to us from California in the United States. Well, still to come on the program. Welcome back to The World Today. Afghan forces are still carrying out their offensive to reclaim areas of Laghman province as the Taliban continues to advance as well. According to the Afghan Defense Ministry, 4 Taliban insurgents have been killed in airstrikes carried out on Wednesday. 2 other members were wounded and some of their weapons and ammunition destroyed. The attack took place on the Baraki Barak districts. The Taliban have been gaining territory for weeks but accelerated their thrust as the United States vacated its main Afghan base, effectively ending an intervention that began with the ousting of the radical Islamist Taliban government in 2001. Taliban advances have been especially dramatic in northern provinces where they had long been kept at bay. Well, Pakistan has shut its border to Afghanistan, citing COVID-19 concerns. They've handed out 7 containers of COVID-19 supplies to the Afghan government to help fight the pandemic. People stranded at the border today, especially truck drivers, said they believed the closure could be because of the worsening situation in Afghanistan following the departure of U.S. forces. The withdrawal of U.S. and allied forces, scheduled by President Joe Biden to be completed by September 11, threatens to precipitate the unraveling of the most pro-Western government in Southwest Asia. Staying in the Middle East, a small training aircraft with 3 people on board has crashed in Lebanon's mountainous Kaswan district north of the capital Beirut. Initial reports suggested the pilot and 2 passengers were killed. The Cessna 172 plane belonged to flight training firm Open Sky Aviation and had taken off from Beirut Airport at 1:30 p.m. local time before crashing 20 minutes later in the village of Gosta. To other stories now, we're hearing from South Africa's Justice Minister that former President Jacob Zuma will be eligible for parole after 4 months of his 15-month jail sentence for contempt of court. Mr. Zuma had handed himself into police on Wednesday to begin his jail term at a prison in KwaZulu-Natal province.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma turned himself in to police for contempt of court Wednesday night, ending a week-long legal drama over a court order for his arrest. Police had been ordered to arrest Zuma if he did not turn himself in by the end of Wednesday. He had refused to do so earlier this week, striking a defiant tone by launching legal challenges against his arrest. The Constitutional Court sentenced Zuma to 15 months in jail last week after he refused to comply with a corruption inquiry back in February. Zuma denied widespread corruption under his presidency, and hundreds of his supporters, some of them armed, gathered nearby his rural estate to try and prevent his arrest. But in the end, Zuma decided to go quietly, a remarkable turn of events for a revered veteran of the African National Congress Liberation Movement.
There was corruption, I think he deserves it, really.
It's about time. He's been avoiding arrest for years, and it's about time. But I doubt very much if he's sitting in a cell. I would think that he's in the lap of luxury somewhere.
I know I'm not feeling it because he's our president, you know. He's ex-president. So if he's arrested, so I'm not happy like that.
Mr. Zuma?
Zuma had previously been jailed by South Africa's white minority rulers for his part in the anti-apartheid movement. The Zondo Commission, an investigation into Zuma launched in 2018, is examining allegations that he allowed businessmen to plunder state resources and traffic influence over government policy. Both Zuma and the businessman deny any wrongdoing. Zuma also faces a separate court case relating to a $2 billion arms deal in 1999 when he was deputy president, charges which he denies. The former president maintains that he is the victim of a political witch hunt and that Zondo is biased against him.
Well, crew members who will take Virgin Galactic's test flight to the edge of space this weekend today answered questions about the trip on social media. Virgin Galactic founder Richard Branson says he's looking forward to celebrating the flight with his friends and families when they land. The launch of Virgin Galactic Holdings' VSS Unity rocket plane over the desert will mark the space tourism company's fourth crewed test mission beyond Earth's atmosphere, but it will be the first to carry a full complement of space travelers, consisting of Branson, 2 pilots and 3 mission specialists.
We land, I'll celebrate with family, friends, grandchildren, children, and a great, great grin on my face.
So I'm actually really looking forward to the high-G part of the flight. I've been lucky enough to fly with the pilots a lot in our aerobatic aircraft and in the centrifuge, and I'm really looking forward to that part of the flight.
Inside Spaceship 2, it will be perfectly climate controlled, so you'll be absolutely perfectly comfortable at all times.
I've had dreams about this flight almost every night. I'm one of those people that dreams in vivid color every night, and ever since I got the news that I'm going to space, I've been dreaming about it. So I'm just so excited, and it's clearly there in my mind.
Certainly dreams come true. Well, that's the world today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.